Welcome to My Life. We're very pleased to have Erich Senft from Addison Township with us for part 2 of our interview with Erich. Just as a reminder, Erich has been on the Board of Trustees in Addison for 2 years. Prior to that, 7 years on the Police and Fire Board, 4 years on the Zoning Board of Appeals, and he's lived in Addison Township for 37 years, and he's been to 1 or 2 strawberry festivals, I might add, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
When we left off last time, Erich, we were talking about your high school experience and how you were approaching graduation and all the things that were happening in the mid to late 60s that were going through your mind, affecting whatever decision you were going to make for your future. And you very interestingly mentioned, when I asked if you had any brothers or sisters, that you had a twin brother who died at a very young age from a disease that you guys had to deal with in post-World War II Germany.
Correct.
You've got some unique memories of war. Well, maybe not exactly memories of war itself because you were so young, but from what your parents and grandparents told you as time went on, that as you approached your senior year of high school and you were thinking, geez, I might have to go into service and serve in Vietnam, I would really like to go to college, what am I going to do? What were you really thinking of during that time?
Well, my thought was there really wasn't a choice back in those days because there was a draft going on.
Correct.
I've had some good input about the military from an uncle who is, was from the United States that married my dad's sister. And he was in the Army back in World War II, and then he transferred, I guess he transposed into the Air Force. There was a transition there I'm not too familiar with. But anyways, I got some good input from him. So I was, I had to go to Fort Wayne for my physical, and which I passed, and I was pretty much scheduled to go to Vietnam. Then I had a unfortunate bad break in my right arm to the point where over a year it was totally fixed. I could not move it, and due to that I got a deferment of 1Y, which is a medical deferment.
Correct. So
I didn't have to go, and I was not drafted. So that's the story on that.
But it was probably kind of a frightening thing for you to approach before the arm incident because of the memories that had been instilled in your mind about the tragedy of war, the destruction of war, the loss of lives, and so on and forth.
Yeah, matter of fact, when we took the bus from the recruiting station, I think was in Roseville, down to Fort Wayne, and these are all guys that from my area, not from high school. There was 9 of us that went down there, and of course I made it back because I never left. Out of the 9, only 2 guys came back from Vietnam in the bus that I went down to Fort Wayne for medical. Yeah, so that that kind of leaves an effect on you.
So once you knew for sure about your life not being in the service, what direction did you go in after high school?
I started attending Lawrence Tech, as it was called at that time, and I went to school there, and that was my main thrust, is to get an education and then proceed to get into an engineering environment, because I was exposed to that through my father.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, even back after high school, I got my first Corvette, and which mysteriously broke down on Sundays.
You got your first Corvette right after high school?
Right after high school.
How did you save up for that?
I don't remember exactly. I might have had a little help from my parents. Yeah, but I bought that in 1960, right after I graduated, 1964. I bought a used 56 Corvette from a Ford engineer who couldn't drive the Corvette anymore because the Mustang came out in 1964. So that was my so I started wrenching on the thing. It always broke down after I took it out to Woodward. I don't know what that meant, you know.
Well, you had a real chick magnet there.
Well, yeah. It well, a lot of car magnet and a lot of chick magnet, maybe. I guess.
So, okay, so you moved on to Lawrence Institute of Technology at that time. I take it you always wanted to be an engineer. Is that
Yes.
pretty much
Yeah.
true? And I would guess that you had a lot of support from your parents towards that occupation.
Absolutely.
Any particular facet of engineering that interested you more than anything else?
Mechanical.
Yeah.
Mechanical, cars, trucks, you know. At that time, my dad had changed over from Continental Aviation because the contract for that diesel engine was done and the project was complete. And he was recruited by General Motors. So at that point, he was at General Motors at research and working on engine development. So.
Well, didn't Lawrence Tech eventually become GMI, General Motors Institute, or
No, GMI was the educational leg of GM, General Motors Institute up in Flint.
Okay.
Now it's known as Kettering.
Kettering, that's it, okay.
Lawrence Tech used to be called Lawrence Technological School, okay? As of, I think, about 10, 12 years ago, it achieved university level. Now it's known as LTU, Lawrence Technological University. But it was always the same school.
Now, was this the period during which you met your wife?
No, ironically not. And I gotta be careful how I phrase this one, but being around horses and driving Corvettes and racing and all that sort of thing, it kept me busy.
You're trying to tell me you were having too much fun.
I was having a whole lot of fun. I was having a lot of fun, which meant that getting married was pushed out a ways, okay? So, I didn't get married until late. So.
Was there any tie-in between your love of cars and your engineering education as time went on?
Absolutely. Especially I started working at General Motors in 1969, and right away it was in an engineering environment, and it was in a engineering department that developed the drivelines for school buses. Quite complex, long wheelbase, a lot of prop shafts. And if you don't design that just right, they vibrate, so that was one of the first assignments that I had.
Did you find that during that era, because of Vietnam, you were one of the very few younger people on the staff?
I was one of the younger, but in the department that I started in, we started utilizing computers more, as opposed to traditional drafting methods to solve things. In 69, early 70s, GM was developing a heavy use of computers to solve problems.
Okay, now.
And I was lucky enough to get into one of those departments.
My memory of a computer back in 1969 is something that filled a room.
Half of the building here, probably.
We're going to come back to that.
Yeah.
Stay with us.
There's a lot of history to Oxford. Hidden around every corner, deep in every crack, and sometimes right in front of you, waiting to be discovered. If you just dig a little, you'll find the great history of our beautiful town. Welcome to Historic Oxford.
Back with Erich Senft from Madison Township, talking about your early experiences with General Motors and computers.
Yep.
And this was, what year, 1969?
69, yep.
Wow. So how big was your computer?
The computer at that point, I still remember, it was an IBM 370. It was in a room probably the size, I would say maybe 20 by 20. Air conditioned, had an air conditioner all by itself. it would be freezing in there, you know. That would be the main computing power, you know, that we had back in those days. Something that you probably have the power on an iPad now, yeah.
Well, probably so, but
Yeah.
but you folks didn't have an actual screen and keyboard on your desk.
No, there was a station outside the room or in the room that you would communicate with the computer. Matter of fact, to really date myself, that was back in the day where you had punch cards. You would have cards, cardboard cards, thin, that would be actually full of holes that you would produce by typing on a typewriter, and they would put the holes in these cards, and you would put a whole deck of these cards together, which would be equal to a program running on a computer. And you would feed these cards into this computer, and you would read them one at a time. That was my early start.
As an educated man who's seen the history that you have with computers, are you amazed today?
Amazed is probably, yeah, that doesn't even describe it. You know, I was very fortunate to be part of this whole evolution within General Motors. You know, they say right time, right place. I was at the right place at the right time. So I kind of rode the wave of technology development and in the engineering field. Okay, and that's where it started.
Now, your father, who's still with us and 100
Yeah.
years old, and who was also an educated man, when you hold up your iPhone to him, what does he say?
He's amazed, but ironically, he understands it. And as of about a week ago, he's even thinking about turning his flip phone, cell phone, in for a smartphone.
You're not going to tell me he's texting you every hour, is he?
He is thinking about getting a smartphone so he can text.
That's amazing.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing came a long ways. Yeah.
Okay, so you're working for General Motors now. You're completed with college. At what point did you meet your wife?
I met my wife in 1973, and if I can back this up a little bit here, while I was working at GM, I was also starting to compete with the horses. I made a friend around in the 60s, late 60s, who was rodeoing part of the time, and he knew how to throw a lariat, and he was into roping in rodeos, and he taught me how to rope.
This was something you really wanted to learn.
I knew that from when I was in Germany, cowboys, Indians, all that stuff, you know. So when I met Gary Schauler, he was raised on a dairy farm up in K-Pac, and he took his time and he taught me the ropes, as you would say.
He showed you the ropes.
Yeah. Well, he really, yeah. So, but anyways, I was at a rodeo one time, and one of the guys competing there worked at a resort dude ranch over in the west side of the state. And there's an old dude ranch that's still there today. It's called Jack and Jill, Double J Resort in Rothbury, Michigan. Still there today. A lot bigger. But anyways, at that time they had so many guests there on the weekend, they needed experienced horse people to take people out on rides. He says, Eric, come on out, I'll pay you $1.50 an hour. You ride horses, okay? So that's it. So Friday afternoons, I jumped in my car.
Your Corvette?
Yeah, well, yeah, I had one at the time. And I drove to the other side of the state in record time, obviously. And so I worked there. I worked there for, I don't know, about a year or so. And then during the summer, working there on the weekend, when the guest was my wife.
When you tell your kids about, how many children do you have?
2.
Do they say, man, Dad, you were living the life?
Yeah. They, they think, you know, I've had some interesting times. Yeah.
Okay, tell me more about meeting your wife out there.
Well, it was, I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it was a while ago. I got up there Friday night from work, and usually we had like a corral show. We would do some trick riding and stuff like that for the guests, and that was done. And by this time, all the guests for the weekend were there. And then afterwards, we went to the bunkhouse. I say the other Wranglers, and we enjoyed a few beverages. Okay. And then we're walking through this dude ranch is quite unique. It's like an old western town. You have a sheriff's office and all that, and that's made into quarters where people actually, stay for the weekend or for the week. It's really a neat place. But anyways, so I'm walking along. Here comes this car, and it pulls up next to me, and 3 girls in there, and I had to peek in there to see, what was going on. And so the driver, who turned out to be my wife, says, we took a wrong turn coming from Chicago. We're heading to Indiana instead of Michigan, Right place, right time, So anyways, I says, well, my name's Erich, and tomorrow if you go ride, you ride with me, The rest is history.
That's great. So she's originally from Indiana?
Chicago.
Chicago.
But originally from Germany.
You're kidding.
No. No. She was about a year and a half old when her parents decided to immigrate from Germany to Chicago. So she was raised in Chicago. Here I live in Detroit. I work in Rothbury, Michigan. 10 o'clock at night. She comes from Chicago, and right place, right time.
Now, just out of curiosity, does she have an engineering background as well?
No, my wife Faye is her background at that time was international banking. She worked First National Bank of Chicago at that time in the international department because she knew other languages. So she's not an engineer. 2 engineers is not a good idea to have in the same house.
So how long did you date before you got married?
Half a year.
Half a year.
The commute between Detroit and Chicago is too far.
Got to be too far. Was there an argument of whether you were going to live there or live there?
Yeah, how'd you know that? Chicago's a neat town.
It is, indeed.
I love it.
Okay, so you were in the school bus phase of things with General Motors.
Well, that's where I started, and then it progressed to other vehicles. We used to make large vehicles, big trucks at that time.
Let's talk about that more in just a minute. We have to take a break. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Elgin Nichols, and I'm here to invite you to watch our weekly calendar of events on Charter 191 and AT&T Channel 99. Learn what local events are going on, and if you have a special event that you want our viewing audience to know about, call us at our TV station at 248-628-9658, or you can locate our dates and times for our program broadcast by going to our website, occtv.org. See you there.
Back with Erich Senft from Madison Township, talking about your experiences with General Motors and other things. I got to ask you this. I've got this on my mind. I got to get it out.
Okay.
All right. So here's this German guy who likes Corvettes and likes to do the rodeo thing with the horses. Right. You had to have a really good nickname somewhere during all this.
Well, I think most of the people, especially at GM, that knew that I played with the horse manure on the weekends, they called me Cowboy, German Cowboy.
The German Cowboy.
German Cowboy. That, that was kind of the nickname.
Okay, let's go back to your experiences at General Motors. You were working with GM on designing school buses. Where did you go from there?
That was I kind of cut my teeth on that, getting familiar with computerizing processes within GM. GM at that time was working very close with IBM to computerize a lot of the manual processes, like drafting, making drawings. Instead of making a drawing, actually do it in a computer to solve it. And I ended up in a department like that would look at a process, and analyze it and see what it took to do it manually, and then convert it into doing it on computers.
What facility were you at for all this?
At that time, I was in Pontiac, which at that time was known as GM Truck and Bus, because we built both truck and bus. But in the area that I just described, the computerized applications, as it was called, was a corporate activity. So you would have Oldsmobile people, Cadillac people, you would have Chevrolet people. We would be formed in teams. We would work on our home sites, but we would have like more or less like team meetings where we would come together and share experiences. And that actually evolved into a whole organization within GM. You know,
was there a particular, did you have in your mind a particular goal of what type of engineering you wanted to end up in, or what department you wanted to end up in?
Yes. My vision was always to look ahead as to what the latest technology is and how we could apply that for automotive industry. I guess if that's what you mean, that was my vision. And in the area of developing vehicles, not so much the manufacturing end of it, but how to develop one. You know, when you know the criteria of what the vehicle should look like, what it should do, so how do you design it really fast? Because it used to take us 4 years to put a vehicle on the road. With computers, it got down into 2 years and less. So that was the vision. I wanted to be part of that. And I was lucky enough to be part of that all the way to the end of my career.
And your last position with General Motors was?
My last title was, I was a virtual engineering manager. And I would be responsible for a platform or two. I had medium-duty truck, I had Hummers, and I had full-size pickups. And what we would do is virtually engineer these vehicles prior to ever building one. Okay, so we would kind of eliminate all the shortcomings. You know, spending all the money for tooling to build one.
And what facility were you at during the last part of?
Tech Center.
Out at the Tech Center.
I was at 12 Mile in Van Dyke. Yeah, and that department was, and then the high-rise building, the new blue building at the Tech Center, that's where we're located.
So when did you get out of horses?
5 years ago. My wife told me I was getting too old.
Did she ever, well, she must have been in it for a while there. Did she stick with it as long as you?
Oh no, she gave up long before that. But yeah, she loved horses. She used to ride in the riding stable outside of Chicago. So she had horse interest, you know, and that's kind of why we met. She wanted to be at a dude ranch, and but we used to ride together. And matter of fact, I have some pictures of her and I early riding together. She'd come and visit me, and I'd put her on one of my Young's horses at the time, which was not a good idea. But yeah. And then actually that whole experience rubbed off on my daughter, Christina, who started in 4-H and then proceeded to go through high school on the equestrian team, and she did really well. She did really well.
You said you had 2 children, is that correct?
Yeah, and my son Rick, he took more to motorcycles as opposed to horses. So.
You mean he didn't want to drive your Corvette?
Oh, he would like to, yeah, you know. But during the kid phase, my Corvette activities were shelved. Okay.
Kept in the garage.
Priorities. Well, actually, I didn't have one during that phase.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That's serious.
Well, no, there's priorities in life, and that was definitely a good priority. My children. Yeah.
Did either of your children choose to go into the engineering field? Or?
I sparked that interest in my son, who is in IT, information technology, and that's something that I kind of, I'll be honest about it, I pushed him into it. And he's working for a German automotive supplier in Auburn Hills here, and as an IT coordinator for North America. So.
Any thoughts on the automobile business these days? Anything, if you ruled the world, would there be something you'd change about the automobile business today?
Yeah. There's one thing that I'm really passionate about, and this goes back to my roots coming to Detroit, the Motor City. Why did we let this all get away from us? Why not kept all the producing of cars and the engineering and everything in Michigan, around the Detroit area, to keep it a true motor city. So I know this is getting a little political here, so I got to be careful.
No, that's quite all right.
But
because
that's my passion. Because I saw it in its heyday, and the reputation it had, and it was worldwide. It was the motor city. But now it's so diluted and so this outsourcing and all that. I never saw that would be a good thing.
No, and of course you've got foreign manufacturers who actually have plants in our country now.
Exactly, and that that's my point. I still have a hard time saying that that's an American-made car if it's made here.
Yeah.
Only, for where the profits go somewhere else.
So tell me a little more about what you're doing with yourself today.
Well, up to date, retired, and
How long have you been retired now?
I've been retired going on 10 years.
And how long has it been since you don't own any horses anymore, do you?
I have the horse that I used to compete with
yes.
in rodeos.
Okay.
He served me well. He probably traveled more in the United States than the average citizen. And he took care of me, so now I take care of him. He's retired. He's 23 years old. He looks like a 10-year-old yet. He's in good shape.
What are some of the places you used to go to participate at rodeos?
Mostly in the Midwest. Michigan, Ohio, Ontario, Illinois at times. And if we got enough points, we may, go out to Oklahoma City.
That had to be exciting.
Yeah, oh yeah, really exciting. Yeah, if I had to do it over again, I would probably do the rodeo thing or to be around horses full time.
That would have been my last question. If you could live your life over again, what changes would you make?
I guess my first answer would be I'd like to do it all over again because it was a good ride. Okay. And cowboy technology.
Well, between Corvettes and horses, I love the choice of words.
It was a good ride, but I can honestly say if I would have not met my wife, okay, I was well on my way, possibly quitting GM and moving out west, and being more horse orientated, due to some influence I had at this dude ranch from some other guys that said, "Hey, come along with us. Go out to the Rockies, man. Beautiful out there." Yeah. But no, I kind of stuck with it.
You had a good life. Absolutely.
I have.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
And good luck to you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Erich Senft, thanks for joining us.
Canine Stray Rescue is Oxford's own local dog rescue. Each year they take in hundreds of dogs and bring them into suitable homes. A certified nonprofit organization, Canine Dog Rescue strives to give pound dogs a new leash on life. To donate, adopt, or even volunteer, call them at 248-628-0435 or go to their website, dogsaver.org, and click on the Canine Stray Rescue League link.